First of all, Jody, that was amazing, and it is really helpful. It's interesting when we're going to talk about our topic tonight, when you talk about this concept that there's so many things that instead of being fearful about, having a strategy and a plan to deal with. And so tonight we're going to have a chance to do something very similar. Again, there's always this stuff that's going on in the background, and some of it's not even good for you. But what is your strategy? What's your plan to deal with it? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Well, good evening, everyone. And I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. And we're going to have a lot of fun. This is the business portion. If you didn't hear Jill right now, all the smart people are no longer on the screen. It's just me. We're talking about doing your business now. We're not talking about oils. We're not talking about the science. We're talking about all this kind of dynamics. I'm just trying to help you run your business better. So for those who don't know me, I'm Eric Walton. My wife is an amazing diamond. My expertise is I am a leadership coach, certified by John Maxwell. And tonight we're going to do something really kind of fun. It's a Q&A session. And we do this once every 2 months or so. And this is not me pontificating on a presentation. It's me just asking questions of some really, really smart people. But let me give you the background of what we're talking about tonight. All right, so leaders, that being you now, all right, everyone on this call leads their own business. Leaders are always, that's in capital letters, always going to have challenges and drama that are seeking to affect your lives and business. All right, it just comes with the job. And if you haven't had a challenge lately, you can borrow one of mine. If you haven't had any drama, you can borrow some of the people that are going to be on the call tonight. They're just going to happen. So what can you do? What can you control? All that you can control is your response. Right? I just want to be real clear. Things happen. Things happen in this world. There's nothing you can do about the war in the Ukraine. It's how you respond to it, how you respond to the news, what you do about what you can control, and that's how you respond to it. So in every situation, you have to make a decision. Should I speak up or should I remain silent? Should I respond in public or in private? Your goal is to bring the drama level down on your team and in your business. Right? That's what your goal is. But this is key. No one, and that means me, that means all the RCDs are going to be on this amazing panel, can tell you what to do because you have to make this decision for yourself and your business. There's a really great quote that I use this all the time. We're going to go down, we're going to say, this was us and this was then, but this is really about this is you and this is now. So you have to make decisions based on what the situation you're going through on your team. What was the drama? I've had situations where the drama is really intense on a team based on something that happened. Another team 5 miles away had no drama based on the exact same circumstances. How is that possible? It's like waves. Sometimes the wave hits you and sometimes it doesn't. So as a leader, you have to make decisions on what you're going to do. Well, guess what? How do you make that decision? How do you bring peace back to your team? So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to hear some amazing RCDs and leaders on how they handle drama on their teams. Now, our goal tonight is to empower you with some ideas, some tools, and some methods that could help you and your teams. Our goal is not to bring fear to anyone or to raise the drama level here on Ignite. Quite the opposite. All we're going to do is we're going to allow you to make the decision on how you respond. So just please listen to their insights and their advice coming from their experience and then determine how you're going to use it for your own teams. All right. So I'm going to ask questions, but when you hear the answers, just receive those answers and then determine when you're going to use them, how you're going to use them, how you're going to implement them. Okay. This is all about how you're going to handle drama with your team. All right. So I'm going to ask questions.
I need a lot of oils for this, Eric.
I understand. Now, there's one other caveat. And I really didn't want this to get too crazy. We're going to talk about real stuff tonight. All right, this is the stuff that you hear like in the background, the infamous fake news, stuff that is coming out. How do you handle this? All right. So the stuff that you weren't sure what to do, we're going to try talking about that. So I really want everyone to listen very carefully, but to realize that us leaders, we're doing the best we can to give you our insight and our opinions. Right? That does not mean that you have to do what we're telling you to do. Please don't take that. All right. Wendy, I haven't seen you yet. I can see. Hi, how are you? So Wendy, what do you, just in general, we're going to get specifics, so don't everybody get afraid yet, but just in general, how do you just deal with drama on your team, Wendy?
Well, first of all, I want to say, Eric, you look fabulous tonight.
Well, It must be the lighting, I'm telling you.
Yes. Okay, I just want to elephant in the room. I'm the yellow in the group, okay? I'm the oddball out. I'm the emotional one. I don't deal with drama well. Everything upsets me. Everything. So if people's feelings are hurt, if someone gets their feelings hurt, if I think someone doesn't like what I say, it's very, very, very difficult. So whatever I share tonight comes with almost 9 years of making mistakes. So how do I deal with drama? Is that the question?
It is. This is general. We're going to get you specific questions, but in general, how do you get your mindset in the right place?
To go to the source. There's so much he said, she said, and try to understand without getting defensive, because there's a lot of room in this business to be defensive and take things personally. So going to the source and knowing that what we feed grows. There's just at this stage no tolerance for it. It's hard
What a novel concept. So I heard from someone who heard from someone who heard from someone who read it somewhere, who might have heard it somewhere on a very unique website. And why don't you just talk to the person who wrote the book or the person who did that note? It's absolutely crazy that people will depend on 5 levels away instead of talking to the person who actually wrote or said what they said. Unbelievable. Jody, rather. Last one. In general, Jody, how do you handle just getting ready and getting your mindset? Oh my gosh, there's drama again today. How do you get your mind right?
Well, and Wendy being more yellow and I'm classic, like Enneagram 8, don't challenge me. I've gotten myself into a few pickles over the years. I'm not going to lie. So just like Wendy said, I mean, we've learned a lot over our years of doing this, and things have changed a lot too. The landscape has changed a lot. It felt like it used to be, we would just get those same little questions. And now there's just so many more layers. There's so much more emotion to things nowadays. And you guys know, I'm a very outspoken person on my social media. So I tend to tackle topics that people would say, don't do that if you own a business. Don't do that if you run a business, right? So that can be challenging. It can be challenging to navigate that. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that if we show up wanting to serve other people, if we show up with really the heart to want to serve other people, and we provide that space, and I'm not saying in my private groups, like we don't talk about politics and that stuff. It's a very safe space for my team members and my customers. But that can bleed out, right? Because people can follow you from different places. And, you know, we weathered a lot of this, I would say, early in 2020, right? Kind of mid 2020. And so I've just really learned that, again, coming from a place of caring for the other person, providing an open place to discuss and not shying away from it, I think is really crucial. Like if Jill were to come to me and say, I'm so mad that you believe this, or I'm so mad that you posted about this, and I don't, whatever, right? I might go back and say, tell me what upsets you about it so much. Let's talk about it, right? Because at the end of the day, what I've learned is that we have way more in common than we realize. And at the end of the day, when we sit across the table with one another, our beliefs actually align a heck of a lot more than the world will convince you of.
Yeah, I think what's so valuable, Jody, first of all, it takes courage. It takes courage to stand up for who you are. It takes even more courage to stand up for who others are. And I think we've always just really been impressed and respected the way that you said that. The other thing I think was wise on the other side in terms of what you've learned is really trying to avoid knee-jerk reactions. When you get defensive and someone writes something that offends you, it's extremely easy to just write back something just as bad, if not worse, immediately. When if you just took 3 beats of a heart breath to think about where are they coming from, the infamous thing, hurt people, hurt other people, and where are they coming from when they made that comment? Also, gosh, should I do this in public, or can I just, hey, Mary, what's going on? What's wrong? And just shooting a private message off to someone instead of doing it in the public space, finding out that Mary's best friend died yesterday. And she is just really, really upset. And she just wrote something that she would never have written, wishes she hadn't written. But now that it's out there, it's out there. For you to respond to that, maybe not the best thing, but she offended you. Okay, but let's just find out. Just such a lot of wisdom. All right, all we did now was just set the stage. But I said we get a little bit more specific. So let's get more real. All right, let's go to my favorite one. Oh my gosh, we just enrolled someone. And hey, I was researching Gary and Young Living, and all I did was bring up a bunch of dirt. Something Gary did with one of his children. I mean, just unbelievable stuff that I know you all don't want to talk about. It never, ever goes away. All right, let's start with our yellow. Wendy, they're bringing up the stuff that just never seems to disappear. How do you handle it when they start talking about Gary and the old news and, oh my gosh, the big separation with doTERRA, all that stuff that is like years and years old? How do you deal with that?
I wish that's what we were dealing with right now versus what we have going on.
We'll get there.
We'll get there too, yeah.
You know, this used to get to me in the beginning, because hearing those things, hearing those untruths, you rev up in that defensive mode and almost start arguing. And I have learned that when people come to me with that information, sometimes they're looking for a reason not to use the products. And if that's the case and that's the space that they're sitting in, then they can go do them. I've wasted enough energy in the past trying to convince people that Gary doesn't have a horn and belongs to. I mean, so what I have done is provided people with the information that I know is true. And what they do with that is on them. But I don't have the energy to try to convince someone that Gary isn't the spawn of the devil or whatever else, you know, is out there. But it has been a thorn. It seems like twice a year something big would be released by a blogger, or because if a blogger writes something, it's got to be true, right? Even if it's salacious in its tone or its heading. We've all seen it. And I've embarrassed to admit, I've wasted so much time trying to convince people of the truth. We give them the truth and we leave it in their lap. We have products, some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. The birds are going to get some. Like, you can say all the sayings, but that's the truth. We don't have the time to beg people to believe that what we have will help them.
What I love is this whole idea of, I'm going to just share the truth that I know, and I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince people. So powerful, Wendy. Jody, this stuff that just doesn't go away. How do you deal with the old news, sometimes 10, 20, 30 years ago, still coming back when someone does this Google search? How do you deal with old news?
So a few things that I've learned, because I think, again, I used to be earlier in my leadership development, because you guys, listen, the beautiful thing about this company, that if we actually allow what we do to do the work in us, it's like a beautiful thing. I mean, we have such an opportunity in this business to grow as human beings. And so I look at where I was a few years ago and very defensive, or sometimes it would just irritate me, or I would be like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. Stop it, please. You know, like, we just learn. We learn more about the way to interact with people. And doesn't mean we get it right all the time. We're human. Like, just the other day, last week, I responded to someone very snarkily on my Instagram DMs, and I was like, oh crap, she's on my team. Whoops. So we make mistakes all the time, right? Now, it's helpful, I think, in this like growth of communication with others, is to sometimes understand how that person is bent, right? Now, we're not going to be able to have that with everyone, but if I know Wendy is super yellow and very feelings oriented, I may ask her some questions, some curious questions that have to do with the way that she's sort of bent or designed, right? Well, tell me, Wendy, I'm curious, how did that make you feel to read all that stuff? You know, like, I can ask some questions that are going to give me an idea of, how does she really feel about this? Or is she just coming to me like, I read this stuff, what's going on? And she just needs like the answer. You know, like, when we ask a few probing curiosity questions, we can then kind of have an idea of which way to go. The other thing is, I through the years have learned this too, is on your phone, on the notes of your phone, have some very canned responses that you don't feel like you have to go digging for. Oh my gosh, where was that response again? And now not only are you up here emotionally because you're like, I can't find it. Where is it? What do I say? But if you have the top things saved on your phone, right? Like, why is sodium benzoate in ginger red? Okay, well, here's the real source of it. Here's the answer. Okay. The rebuttal for the Gary stuff, right? Just have it there at your fingertips. And then you can say, hey, Wendy, I'm curious. Would you like me to send you a rebuttal for what you just read? Would that be helpful to you? And Wendy can say yes or no, because she might also be the personality that just wants to talk it out. Or she might be the personality that's just like, oh, great, I read that, good, I'm cool. Like, it's all good now, like we kind of do have to do a little bit of exploration, but having systems, this is where systems can be super helpful so that you don't get charged emotionally in it as well, and it drains you.
Well, if you all just listen, remember one of the things we've talked about, we want to empower people with some tools and methods. So one of the things that Jody just said, especially the old stuff, and I'm the only reason I brought it, like, why are we talking about stuff that didn't even happen 20 years ago? I'm just saying, because when people enroll, they're brand new to us. They haven't heard these stories. So when they Google, and that's the first thing that invariably comes up, or the third thing that comes up, having something on our phone, we just press this. It's only one paragraph, 2 paragraphs long. It explains exactly where that rumor came from, how it was wrong. Boom, you've handled it, you've mitigated. You just spend a lot of time and energy. Such a brilliant idea. Hey, I'm not trying to tell you, read this and you will now believe my belief systems. Here's what I read, in the hopes that will help you make your own decision, which is all we're trying to help people to do. All right, next question. So this is a relationship business, and frequently we all know we establish relationship with a cross line like we're doing right here. We establish relationships with people on our teams. We also establish relationships with corporate. And then one of the executives leaves corporate. Wait a second, I was just with Jared 2 years ago, and we had this great conversation for 15 minutes before he was going on stage. Oh my gosh, such a great guy. It's such a great relationship. And then he leaves, and all the rumors start again, all the drama. There's people in your team that Jared helped. You don't know even about it, and all of a sudden he leaves, and there's this vacuum. Let me give you one word, then we're going to get their insight. Guess what? I'm going to give you a really hard one. More executives are going to leave. 100% guarantee more will leave. So, Jody, how do you handle when an executive that maybe you had a relationship with, or someone in your team had a relationship, when they leave? How do you handle the drama that comes from that?
I will say we haven't typically had a lot of this, because from the get-go, like, I came from the corporate world, which many of you may relate to, where people tend to stay a little bit longer. It's a little bit different culture and climate in a corporate world, where you're like literally working for somebody else, or somebody is an actual boss of you, which is not what we have here. And it's a very beautiful thing, by the way. And we have to really recognize why this model is so far superior than any other business model. So I recognized very early on that in this type of work climate, in this type of industry, let's say that, is that there's very few people that tend to have the corporate level direct selling experience. So it tends to be a revolving door sometimes. It tends to be that they do something in one company for a little while, they get the results that they were looking for. Sometimes they don't get the results, right? Like, what you have to understand is the corporate model is they're working for a boss in corporate. They're not working for themselves like we are and having our own business. So they have deadlines, they have metrics to meet, they have things that they need to do in order to keep their job. And the reality is, in the corporate world, that's where sometimes you get let go. And sometimes it's not the right fit, or sometimes you grow out of a role and you move on to something else. Honestly, the bottom line for me is when we look at something with a clear lens and we go, oh, well, here we are over here as brand partners, and this is what we do, and here's what corporate does over here. And there's a bridge, right? Like, we are a bridge to each other, but it's a very different world over there. And so when we can understand that from a standpoint of, it's no different than somebody getting asked to leave from another corporate position if they didn't make their goals, or somebody getting fired for whatever reason, or somebody willingly leaving because their life circumstances changed or they moved or whatever it is. That has nothing to do with us. That has no impact on us, right? So I think we have to understand clarity when it comes to this. So that's what I try to explain to people on my team as I go, hey, there's these great people at corporate. They're doing a great job. I don't know how long they'll be there, because they also get burned out too in that type of atmosphere. And so sometimes burnout is a very real thing. And then they take a break and they go to another company and then they come back. Ben is back. He left, he came back, right? So the thing is it is important not to get attached to something, because that breeds expectation, and expectation is disappointment. So the more we get attached to something, someone, results, the more we're going to be disappointed all the time, versus how do we pull that back to us? How do we own our businesses? How do we drive our businesses and work as a bridge to the people who are currently in corporate to help them be as successful as possible? Because ultimately then we're going to be successful, and vice versa.
Love that perspective of really, really attaching to principles and values, and then helping the people along the way that are currently in a role, because when they leave the role, you're still attached to principles and values, your own and the ones of the company. So cool. Wendy, I've had this relationship with someone for 5 years and they left last week. How do you handle that? And how do you handle that with your team?
Well, Eric, I don't have relationships with people at corporate, so I don't know how to say, I don't know how to answer this. But I would just reiterate what Jill and Jody said, that there's turnover in corporate, and the difference between what they do and what we do is they're employees, we aren't. And sometimes those relationships feel like family, and it feels like we're one unit, and there is a bridge. And I think that sometimes when people leave, the response is, oh, Ben left, oh, Lauren left, what's wrong? Something's wrong, the sky is falling. And just to remind them of what Jody and Jill shared, that it's a job to them. There's many reasons why people leave, but we're sitting in a different space, and sometimes those lines are blurred. But I can't tell you about the relationships because I don't talk about
Actually, you just did a really good job. One of the things that I use LinkedIn. It's a much different social media platform. And the reason I do that is it's a much corporate kind of space, but I linked with people from Young Living. And then when they leave Young Living, I don't worry about the social media side of Facebook. I don't care about that. But either they have a relationship with me on LinkedIn or they don't. And I either have a relationship with them in that way or not. I don't worry about that relative to the business, because it's different. Well, that was the easy question. Okay. I said that on purpose to set you up for this one. All right. Let's get to the elephant in the room about people that leave for other MLMs. All right. And and by the way, just so we're real clear, these are, again, family decisions, business decisions that you can make about running your business. But what do you do when it's a big name? What do you do when it's a diamond, crown diamond, or royal crown diamond, someone that you really align with? By the way, they had a big business. They walked away from a big business. I really believe that they're making the best decision for themselves. Even when it feels irrational, even when it feels like you've let down so many people, even if that's true, you still believe that they're making the best decision for themselves. They may have communicated it poorly, they may have done it poorly, but at the end of the game, they made a decision to leave. They even may have done it to where they dragged some people along with them. All you're trying to do is, hey, you don't have to be one of those people who gets dragged along. Make your own decision about how you're going to respond, and let them go. Wendy, how do you deal with, wait a second, we're talking about all these diamonds that leave. How do you deal when there's someone on your own team that leaves, and perhaps not in such a nice way?
Yeah, that's really tough. And there have been a lot of questions. And the truth is, none of us on this call even know why they left.
Really good point.
Told us. I don't know. They've not told me. It's been hard. It's been hard, Eric. I'm trying to choose my words wisely and be kind. But it really comes down to, like Jill said, staying in your own lane. Was what that person was doing impacting your business? Probably not. Did you send people their way are all of your people following them? Possibly. Does that put you at risk of them, picking off your people? Possibly. Is there anything you can do about that? Probably not. But when we are true to our why and we stand behind that, what other people are doing, we can't control. The only thing we can control is what we put into our own business. And I personally haven't been affected. I know Jody has. Haven't been affected too much by that, other than the constant barrage of why they leave.
Why they leave. Yeah.
Must be a problem with Young Living. It must be a sinking ship. Why would they do that? And you can go back and forth all day, but none of us really know why they left. All we can do is continue to put one foot in front of the other and work on our own business to control the controllables, because that's not something we can control. So Jody can probably speak to this so much more, because I know she's been impacted on her team. And thankfully, unless there's something I don't know, it hasn't hit us as hard as it hit other teams.
Yeah. Wendy, I first appreciate that. I talked to someone who had been through one of my coaching programs on week 1, and there's no way I'm leaving. The very next week she'd left, and she'd obviously been planning it, and it just was extremely upsetting, because there just was a breakdown in integrity that she just lied right to me, and it hurt a lot. So talking about hurting a lot. So Jody, how do you deal with this when it does hurt you?
Oh boy. Let me choose my words carefully too. Yeah, and my team has been impacted in a couple areas. And I will say, back when it kind of started, I think it was like August, September. I think because we had never really dealt with this in the social media space. So guess what, guys? People have left before. There just wasn't the gross social media part of it that we have now. There just wasn't that technology piece that magnifies and amplifies everything and just leads people into this place where they just feel like they're crazy half the time too, because you're reading and looking at all this stuff. And like Jill said, it looks like it's a lot of stuff because it's so charged, but in reality, that's not the truth, right? So where is the truth and how do we find the truth? And so I think because it was something we had never really dealt with in that type of environment, I think a lot of us went into protective mode of our team. I think a lot of us went into like mama bear mode, like just wanting to protect all of the work and the relationships that we had built. And it felt very charged. It felt very depleting. It felt very emotionally draining. And you guys, that's the reality of it, right? Like it can be that or anything else in our life. It's do we choose to put that energy there, or do we choose to look at it a different way and go, okay, this is happening. What can I control and what can I not control? And we always can control our emotions and our reactions. And I admit, when it first happened, there were probably a few things that I said or did that I would take back, but we're human, okay? And I think that really the conversation is that we, in my observation, and something that you guys can look at in your career as a brand partner and learn from us, right? Because we're here just to help you share our learnings, to help you be stronger and to help you navigate these things. Even if you never deal with it, these are life lessons, right? Because there's things that are happening in family relationships and friend relationships that can so parallel to things that we may deal with in Young Living. And I look at this as like, we have an outsourcing issue. We have a worship issue. We have an attachment issue. And kind of like what Jill was saying is that we put our power of our business and our success in another world, in a Royal Crown Diamond, or in somebody who is showing on social media how awesome their life is. Do we really know what their life is behind the scenes? Do we really know what the truth is? Or are we outsourcing our success and our business to what somebody else is showing on social media? And then all of a sudden they leave. And let me tell you, when you have outsourced your power, you're not going to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You're not. And that's why you see some people go and follow them, because they never took ownership of their business. And And I will just say it very clearly. They never took ownership of their business. They thought it was going to come easy. They thought somebody was going to stack them to Royal Crown Diamond. And they may be of the belief that this person is going to stack them to the highest rank in Modere. Reality is going to come crashing down pretty hard, because that's not how business works. And that's not how life works. So we cannot outsource to people. We cannot put people on pedestals. We cannot worship them as if they're going to solve all of our problems just by following them on social media or being on their team. That is up to us. You take that power back and you build your business. So that's what I've seen unfold in the last 6 to 8 months. Is I've seen that we have an idolization problem, and that is completely controllable by each and every one of us.
Well, I love that, this strong connection. You have to own your business, which means you have to own your responsibility to yourself, to your family, and to the people that are part of your team that you're serving. By the way, not that are following you, the people that are part of your team that you're serving. And it's such a big difference. I love that. So let's get a little more current. So many things are happening in today's world around. So there will be a news item, and it will start relatively innocently. And I'm thinking, for example, that it was reported in a large magazine that Young Living does business in Russia. And within seconds, it was Young Living does business with the government of Russia. It was only a matter of a few moments before Putin owns Young Living. I know, by the way, please, for all those that are writing shafts, that's not true, nor am I saying that, but that's how this all starts. Like, have we ever shipped product to Russia? The answer is absolutely. But what are you supposed to infer from that in the middle of a Ukrainian war? Well, Wendy, how do you deal with inaccurate news or news that gets twisted, that's current, that's happening right now? How do you deal with that, Wendy, when your teams are interpreting it, hearing it wrong, or hearing it through multiple sources?
Well, I kind of gauge it by how many personal messages or DMs I'm getting. So we'll see something, and if I'm getting a barrage of messages, then I will go into my community, which I feel very strongly about keeping politics and religion out of, because we are all different. We are a global company, and we all have different beliefs and values, and it's okay. Our groups are a place for everyone to focus on our products. Sorry, guys, go downstairs. So I just lost my train of thought. So with this situation, so what you just talked about, I heard about it this weekend from a few people, and I have decided not to say anything in my group today because it kind of died down. But you walk that line of not saying anything, and it looks like you're hiding it, or bringing it to their attention, which blows it wide open. And that's kind of the line that you walk with any kind of controversial situation. And so for me, I wait and see how my inbox is blowing up and what my leaders are saying. And then I will go in my group and address it as quickly and simply as I can, and not tolerate any negativity or drama that ensues, because I'm not the kind of person that can stand misunderstandings, especially with something that's so not true. But at the same time, I've learned that jumping and being defensive just ignites the fire for those that are just waiting to fight, or those that don't even know what's going on. They jump in, and negativity breeds. So I wait and see what the temperature is of my team, and then I will go into the group and do a live or make a post to just get it out there with facts, and then have conversations. Otherwise, I keep it in DM. And that's what happened this weekend, going back and forth. And thankfully, we have some chat groups of diamonds to kind of ping pong things back and forth. And Jody's always a really good source of information, because she knows what's going on. I'm not always up to date or up to speed about these things that come out and go viral.
But I love the perspective of taking the temperature. And again, the counsel that we're trying to give everyone here on the teams, news that is out there does not affect every team the same way or at the same speed. So as a leader, you really have to make a decision. Am I going to be a rumor monger? I'm going to be someone who's constantly responding to rumors, even some they haven't heard of, which I can trust you. When that happens, you're spreading the rumor yourself. You're actually spreading more problems in your team than you're getting worth for. And then when, what do you say? Just knowing, you know what, temperature, time for me to respond, too many. And then knowing when to do that. So cool. Jody, how do you handle when there's news out there that gets skewed wrong or inferred wrong, or even has an element of truth, but is being interpreted wrongly? How do you do that when it's current? Because, by the way, this is not the first one that will happen. I'm going to give you a 100% guarantee in the next 3 months, another rumor will start from something that came from somewhere. 100% guarantee.
100%. I think in this case, it is important to have an understanding that we currently are living in a world charged by disinformation, and that massive amount of info circling around us all the time on our phones, on our screens, in our ears from other people. It's actually a weapon. It's used as a weapon to confuse you and to paralyze you. And so if we can have even ourselves a foundation and leveled understanding of why is the world like this right now? Why does everything feel so charged? Why is there seeming to be an issue after issue after issue? And just having that understanding of, the human brain can only handle so much, and everything that people went through the last 2 years, a lot of which a lot of people don't recognize it in themselves. They're not even at that level of awareness yet. So they're reacting to everything out of emotion. And so if we can just have that understanding, it helps us to step back and go, how should I deal with this? Knowing that as a foundation, how do I feel best to respond? And I think, Wendy, definitely I keep a gauge on what messages I'm getting or what people are saying. I think also certain things like this may be best for a one-on-one conversation. So if somebody is saying something or emotionally charged about something, this is where we shy away as leaders sometimes because we think we're not equipped. You are perfectly equipped to have a conversation with someone. You're a human being, right? You are perfectly equipped to call up Stacy and go, hey, so I know I've seen some things, heard some things. I want to come to you and talk to you about it because I don't want to make assumptions. And just approaching people and knowing that they're just another human being, right? They don't need to be scary. I'll just share how I personally have dealt with this so far. And we always have to be willing to pivot. Okay. Pivot's your superpower. Okay. You can pivot at any time you want to. And pivoting doesn't mean that you're like about face 180-degree turn. A pivot is just like a gentle, well, all right, I did that, but maybe I need to do this now. This is what I'm feeling. So the way that I personally have dealt with this is more in my Instagram stories and more unpacking truth, right? So a lot of times the best way to sort of meet something head on is to just share the truth without emotion attached to it, right? Emotional neutrality is your superpower too. And it doesn't mean we can't have emotions, but we are presenting things with emotional neutrality and just sharing the truth. And the people who are going to take that are going to take it. And the people who don't want it, right? So I just talked about this from a standpoint of, let's look at the truth here, guys. Okay, first of all, what is the path to freedom for someone? What is their path to freedom? Is it owning their own business? Is it having health in their life?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with a government, right? What does that have to do? And by the way, let's talk about hypocrisy for a second, because we're also living in an age of hypocrisy, which is you don't like this country today, but it's okay that this country has a tyrant and a dictator. That seems to be okay, right? Yeah. So we have to, again, look at things and why are people charged? Why are people feeling this way? And I personally, my style is just to deliver facts and to deliver truth with neutrality and to just help people see a bigger picture of something rather than go toe to toe, because going toe to toe never works, actually. We can't fight fear with fear, and we can't fight hate with hate, and it just doesn't work. So we have to raise our level of frequency. Mm-hmm. And raising that level of frequency is showing up with truth and neutrality.
I think what's so valuable is we've trained our own leaders. And by the way, when I talk about leaders on your own team, are those that have influence. So on our group page, we know that if Gene writes a post, people are going to listen to that and watch that. And so one of the things we talk about, because no one knows everything, but so we say, Gene, if you have a question or something has come to your attention, give us a holler first. instead of putting that post in your group and then really alarming everyone. I just heard this. Don't be that person. By the way, you're still trying to find out, Wendy said this earlier, trying to find out what's really going on. Give us a call. By the way, we don't know everything, but we might know something. So really give us a call to find out if perhaps we can get to the source. I think the other thing that bothers me so much is people will not look at the source information that they're coming from. In today's social media, I saw this the other day, there are some incredible actresses on social media. People that are able to cry, people are able to actually put on a performance that is unbelievable, Emmy worth, Tony worth, Oscar worth. And in reality, their only purpose is to sow dissension among young living and to recruit people to their MLM. And so if you just look at the source of some of the information, who's actually doing it, oh yeah, they recently just left Young Living for this other MLM, and now they're picking fights and picking battles. It's unbelievable that people won't look at that they will believe someone who's left, who has tears, before they will believe us, who actually have been here for 10 years and aren't going anywhere. They'll actually believe the tears. So I guess I just have to learn how to cry better. But they will actually believe that stuff before they do anything else. Just take a pause, ask for the truth. I think truth and neutrality is a really, really great start. It's funny, we talked about Gary a lot, and I mean, he was just one of those unique individuals, certainly in history and in my personal life. But I also was around Gary one time when he made a mistake. Now, his heart was always true, but that does not mean his brain didn't occasionally make a mistake, because last time we looked, Gary was human too. And so he made a mistake, and it took a weekend, and it was not a very comfortable weekend for an awful lot of people. But I will tell you what, he reversed course, changed his decision, and apologized. I mean, and this was a huge deal. I mean, it affected everyone. And he just, he made a decision. It was the best he could at that time, with the best counsel that he had at the time. But guess what? That does not always mean it was the right course to go. And so he figured out over the weekend, well, you know what? I think I might have screwed up. And you can see that. I just saw one of the chats. You can see that reflected in Jacob now. I think Jacob's got a line of integrity into him that is unique at his age, to have that, to realize I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say something wrong, or I'm going to say something right, but I'm going to say it in the wrong way. There's a 100% chance I'm going to do something like that myself in the next 30 days. So I'm just trying to be real about that and reflect on that. All right, we one last question, all right? Because this one is a little closer to people that have had this. All right, we've been talking about drama with the world, with other MLMs. What do you do when the drama is on your team, between two people on your team? All right, two people on your team, and by the way, they're having an argument, they're having a disagreement, and it's gone public. Right. Well, if it was staying private, we wouldn't be having this. We wouldn't need to talk about it because they were handling it. But it's gone public. Oh my goodness. Wendy, how do you deal when the drama is on your team, not out in the public, it's not about some other MLM, it's just on your team and there's been a disagreement?
Well, I've learned through failure that you deal with it with the people, and that I am not the mediator. I am not the judge nor the jury, that they work on it together, because I have lost brand partners by brand partners feeling like I was siding with one person or the other. So being in the middle of it doesn't seem to bode well. So really, truly initiating the brand partner
discussion, yeah,
to talk it out themselves. And I've only learned that through pain and failure, because that's the only way that they're going to work it out. It's not on us, like Jill said.
Real world. Jody, how do you handle when the drama's on your team?
I mean, I definitely feel like we for sure experienced some of the more public stuff when that stuff happened last year, summer. And, one thing for me, first off, is I learned pretty quick to just like disconnect and block people and not watch things, and just because it can start to affect you if you feel like you are in the middle of it or you have to fix something, right? So I think there's a very real part of this, which is how do we also protect our own energy and our own space so that we can show up the best that we can for other people on our team, right? Because again, a lot of times when we try to get in the middle of it, and I've learned the hard way too, just like Wendy has, because you know, depending on your personality, I like to fix things. Like I like to be a fixer. I don't like there to be discourse. I don't like there to be, you know, drama. Like I want to fix it. And what I've learned is that most of the time it's really not my space to fix it, because it's other people's junk. It's other people's stuff. And if we could also recognize that a little fun feature of this type of business we are so blessed to do is there's a lot of crossover with just friendships and interpersonal things and family. And you know what? Sometimes those can go sour sometimes because you're dealing with people, right? And we don't fire people. We don't, you know, like it's learning how to navigate through those personal things that will absolutely come up. And if they haven't yet, I promise you, as you grow in this business and you get more people, things will start to show up. And so to learn this skill now of these tips that they both shared, which is go to the person, you know, doing our best not to allow that to seep into our team or to become part of that drama or to put ourselves in the middle of it. And instead, it may be, I've had the thing where it's separate conversations with two different people, but I'm approaching it the same way, you know, asking the open-ended questions of each of them to see if they can come to a place. And the fact of the matter is there are absolutely people who, you know, on our teams, like they've enrolled somebody, again, you get those layers, right? And then you get the relationship piece, and then you get the junk, and then you get the life changes. And, you know, a lot of it is, I think some of it happens when there's some jealousy. I think that for sure can be a part of it, when there's some resentment, when there's expectation. It's all these real low vibrational emotions. So some things that we can do right off the bat is really help people be their own owner of their team, right? If we can teach ownership and individuality right from the start, we're going to probably have less of that happen. It doesn't mean it's never going to happen, because it's people. We're dealing with relationships, right? But if we can really set the tone and have that consistent messaging of ownership, personal ownership, you know, we don't blame things or people. We take ownership of our actions, and here's how we do that, and here's what we can control. I've been doing a lot of conversations on my team lately of control the controllables, because I've had parts of my organizations collapse, and I've had some of those people just feel devastated and hurt and just in really tough positions. And I want to fix it for them. And sometimes I can't fix it for them. And so it's, what can we control? Control the controllables. And I'll tell you right now, there's always going to be a human being on this planet with a health need. That's never going to end, because of the world we live in. We have a never-ending bucket of people that we can reach, and that will always have a health need. So yes, like Jill said, you keep serving, you control the controllables. And the emotion part of it is what's so hard. And so the longer that the more that we can work on ourselves, so that when those things happen, we don't feel that it was a personal attack against us, or we don't feel like we have to fix something, or we don't feel that it just completely drained us and depleted us. Instead, we can go, what can I control right now?
It is, I just want everyone to understand the courage it takes just to actually say your opinion on these matters. It's really easy to let this thing go by. We thought of it almost 2 months ago when it was just being crazy. And we said, you know what, let's just take the courage and talk about the hard stuff, which is what we did tonight. I think what's so important is we talk about this sense of ownership, but I just want to put this one part in. Whichever direction you go, be thoughtful and intentional with your decision. Do not do this circumstantial, do not do this happenstance. Don't knee-jerk react, but instead really watch what's being said, take the temperature, as Wendy said, discern what the root issue is, research the issue where you can, and make an informed decision as what you're going to do. Are you going to do something in public, some private? You're going to be quiet, going to not be quiet, but make a decision. Sometimes the response is the best, as a discussion is so absurd that anything you say gives the other party some time, the spotlight. Other times the falsehoods are too great and impact your team too much. In that case, you need to respond, but be very intentional on how you respond, the format, the tone, the words, whether it's live or in writing. Know that whatever you say is going to be out there forever. So, but be brave. I think that's the one thing that we picked up real well from Jody as well. Be brave and stay true to who you are and your own values. And when you talk about your heart and your intuition tells you what to say, be authentic, be real, be vulnerable, be genuine. And the people who know you will respond in kind and support you. And the drama level will go down.